Education Committee meeting to order. Before we begin, I want to remind committee members and members of the public to follow our code of conduct at meetings. This includes commenting on the specific agenda item only and addressing the full body. Public speakers, please do not engage in conversation with the chair or any of the council members or staff. All members of the committee, staff, and the public are expected to refrain from abusive language, and failure to comply with the code of conduct that disturbs, disrupts, or impedes the orderly conduct of this meeting will result in removal from the meeting. Just a reminder to be polite, everyone. All right, can the clerk call the roll, please?
Candelas?
Aye.
Torres?
Oh, he meant here.
For Candelas? Torres? Doan? Ortiz?
Present.
Davis?
Here.
We're at quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we did have a request to move items, but that council member is not here, so we'll move on to item B, review of the work plan. There is one item that is suggested to be dropped, so I will need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, can we have the roll, please?
We're all in person, so I'll go ahead and go on the screen.
All right, thank you. I forget we can do that. All right, and that motion carries, so we will move on to reports to the committee. And the first item is the PRNS Community Impact Annual Report.
Davis, sorry to interrupt. We actually did have a hand up for the last work plan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You want to do public comment?
Sure.
Paul Soto? Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, Council. Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. I wanted to talk about the digital equity. The pandemic decimated the largest portion of our population in relation to its population, Latinos more than any other group. COVID infections more than any other group. The economic impact more than any other group. You see, but what COVID did is it didn't create those issues.
Paul?
Yes.
The item that you're supposed to be speaking about is the review of the work plan, the Urban Confluence Silicon Valley Project quarterly status report being dropped from this agenda.
Oh, my apologies, my apologies. Thank you for the check. Okay, let me rewind. Urban Confluence. Urban Confluence is an extension of Urban Community. This is Gary Dillabow's brainchild. It's his nonprofit that he leverages influence within the context of the council in order to gain political power, leverage, and influence in these committees to finance and facilitate his ability to establish himself here in San Jose. Now, I respect the fact that he spent over $500 million within a 90-day period, but I still consider him a guest because his hand has never touched the fields, the prune fields, the pears, the canneries. Never. Absolutely, he had absolute.
Back to the committee.
Thank you. Would any member of the committee want to revote on the review of the work plan? All right,
I would.
Seeing none. You would like to revote? You weren't here to vote originally.
That is correct. I would like to revote.
we do that? Okay. The item passed, so we're just going to move on.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Community Impact Annual Report. John?
Good afternoon, Chair. John Cicerelli. I'm the Director of Parks, Recreation, Neighborhood Services. With me, Daniel Lazo, our Director of Communications, and Dave DeLong, our Division Manager for Administrative Services. So this is an annual report that we do. There's quite a bit of storytelling about how the year went and some of those successes, but it's also the vehicle we use to report each year through NSE on our fee activity program. So with that, I will hand it to Dave to begin the presentation.
All right, thanks, John. As John mentioned, each year, in accordance with the City Council's pricing and revenue policy, PRNS is required to report out on performance related to our financial sustainability efforts. This community impact report satisfies that requirement for fiscal year 2021-2022. As you know, PRNS is a large and expensive department to run. And as you can see, we've taken hits in recent years in terms of our cost recovery. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw decreases in revenues while expenses remained high due to shelter-in-place and virtual programming. That said, in 21-22, we had a rebound year as we emerged from the pandemic, and we continue to provide valuable programming, including scholarship support for those in need. As you can see, we brought in $27 million, which covered $98 million in actual expenses. Comparatively speaking, we were about $5 million shy of the $32 million in revenue that was created or transferred to the department in 18-19, which was the last normal year before the pandemic. Next slide, please. This slide shows how big we are in terms of funds allocated to several areas of operation. I'll say it again, we're huge, and in 21-22, we had an operating budget of $159 million. In addition, we carried a capital development budget of $207 million, which makes up part of $355 million we have allocated to our department over a 5-year period of time for capital projects. That means that collectively in 21-22, we effectively managed $376 million in city resources, which we use to advance program services and capital projects you're about to hear shortly. With that, I should also say that 32 of the $50 million in strategic support funding shown here was comprised of ARP funding, which we leveraged for programs like Beautify SJ, Abierto activations, food distribution, child and youth services, and resilience core efforts. Next slide, please. This slide shows several key data points regarding our progress in 21-22. Last year, PRNS's recreational programs, including camps and classes, had 12,563 unduplicated participants comprised of children, youth, teens, and active adults. And of these participants, 31% received scholarships, about 3,900 and something unduplicated scholarships for the year, thereby providing access to active, safe spaces to children of working parents. With that, in 21-22, PRNS partnered with CEFQ to welcome them as the first business in our community to step up and partner with us to provide scholarships as an investment into the future of our youth. On top of this progress of ensuring equity and access, the department was also able to augment its resources by securing ongoing funding for a handful of previously one-time initiatives, including those you see here on the right: Park Rehabilitation Strike Team and Capital Improvements Project Team, Placemaking and Abierto, Police Activities League, Facility Support, Project Hope, Turf and Integrated Pest Management Teams, and Volunteer Management Unit. Next slide, please. PRNS brings a diversity of talent across 5 operating positions or divisions. Our workforce is big, with 774 total FTE in 21-22, which amounts to over 1,500 employees when you include our part-time seasonal staff. Suffice it to say, we're mighty in terms of our ability to mobilize and serve our residents, and we are passionate. And as our PRNS Best staff continues to grow, we look forward to providing a high level of dedicated love and service and care to our community through a diverse set of ongoing programs and services. With that, I'll hand it over to Daniel Lazo, who will pick up the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Dave. Now on to some highlights of our department. To start off, we have about 47 community centers, which are the most transformative places in our city, from recreational leisure to emergency response. Just within our community centers, over 350,000 meals have been served through the Senior Nutrition Program, and we've served nearly 30,000 seniors each month through this program. Our department, as you know, maintains over 200 parks and over 62 miles of trails to promote a safe and fun, healthy San Jose. Not only within our parks, but our neighborhoods as well, PRNS brings tens of thousands of volunteers to be stewards alongside of us. At this point, I want to dive into how we rise up in different occasions. Looking at our first guiding principle of stewardship, we incorporate it with resilience, as we are no stranger in having to pivot during emergency response operations. Rain or shine, our emergency response team plays a pivotal role in helping residents in need. In August of 2021, we had a gas leak that forced residents out of their homes. In October of the same year, local rainfall left concern for flooding in certain residential areas. In all instances, our EOC teams can rise up in any event to provide information and resources such as community centers as evacuation sites to residents in need. Besides emergency operations, we're grateful to all those in our department who also focus on keeping our parks, trails, and community centers safe and clean. Programs like Beautify SJ and Park Maintenance improve the quality of our neighborhoods by taking care of what we have and investing into the future. For example, in the first year in PRNS, Beautify SJ's Rapid team had its busiest year ever, completing over 23,000 illegal dumping service requests within an average of 4-day response time. The team collected nearly 3,000 tons of debris, which is as heavy as 20 blue whales, which included over 5,000 mattresses and 3,000 couches. Speaking of improving the quality of our neighborhoods, we also rise up to ensure residents have access to parks and recreation opportunities regardless of their age, gender, identity, income, ability, or culture. Happy Hollow Park and Zoo is one of many examples of a premier SJ destination and a jewel of PRNS, connecting people to nature through play for many generations. This past fiscal year, Happy Hollow was reaccredited by the AZA for another 5 years to continue this mission, which includes providing scholarships to low-income families to visit the zoo for admission of only $4. In another example, Project Hope has been an empowering force in our communities, helping to amplify residents' voices and encourage self-advocacy in areas within San Jose that have been historically been marginalized and are presently experiencing poorer outcomes than other neighborhoods. Last year, the team launched 2 new program sites in McKinley and Washington neighborhoods in D3. Another example of how we rise up to the challenges of the past year is protecting, preserving, and promoting our natural areas. Most notably from the last year, our park rangers celebrated 50 years. Our park rangers are not only highly trained professionals that help with public safety during emergencies, but they also serve as educators providing information on safe interactions with the outdoors as well as cultural and historical aspects of the park, such as Amherst, which is also a beloved destination for many generations, or Alum Rock Park, which is one of the oldest municipal parks in California. Alongside our park rangers and maintenance staff, the SJCC Resilience Corps members and volunteers work in maintaining and improving our city parks and trail system. Our partnership empowers its participants to build futures for those in our communities, and with their help, residents can embrace and enjoy nature. On the topic of enjoyment, I want to highlight the ways we rise up to strengthen our community life and neighborhoods through safe, fun events and daily activities. Last year, Alum Rock Park celebrated 150 years with special events from March through October. Residents were able to enjoy nature and learn more about the historic park, such as having its very first camp out. Many residents shared excitement on their first camping experience and the convenience of camping in local park and learning about the history. Another fun, notable event for residents is Viva Calle SJ and Viva Parks. Working together with the council offices in the community, Viva Parks has opened, Viva Calle has opened over 6 miles of streets, not just once, but 4 times this past fiscal year. In addition, over 57 Viva Parks events activated in neighborhoods throughout San Jose. Most excitedly, some neighborhood parks received new amenities this past year. The Capital team manages 200 projects on average, delivering a wide range of projects from simple trail repairs to renovating playgrounds and rehabilitating community centers. Some of our most notable ribbon cuttings this year include Lincoln Glen Park, which received major upgrades to have an all-inclusive playground and provide access to sensory and physical play for children of all ages and skill levels. Capital Park Futsal Court, which received new surfaces, signage, and repaired goals for the community to safely enjoy using the court, and Tully Dog Park, which became the 15th dog park in San Jose and the first dog park in District 7 community. Moving forward, we're reminded of our 20-year strategic plan, Activate SJ, and its guiding principles of stewardship, equity and access, nature, public life, and identity. PRNS continues to maintain financially sustainable programs as it seeks to offset costs in accordance with market conditions. Efforts are emphasized on equity and accessibility through a growing scholarship program, adaptive programs and services for seniors and children, expanding Beautify SJ initiatives, maintenance and improvements of parks and amenities, and the continued implementation of Activate SJ. Sufficient maintenance and staffing are essential to meet the growing needs of our city. It is crucial for our department to invest in and train the next generation of leaders. PRNS continues to serve and uphold our mission of connecting people through parks, recreation, and neighborhood services for an active San Jose. And if folks want to learn more, you can read our report online or follow us on social media at SJ Parks and Rec. We're welcome to take any questions from council now. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to public comment first, and then we'll hear from my colleagues. And with my colleagues, we'll be respecting the same time guidelines that we use at regular council meetings. Public comment?
Paul Soto?
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hello? Oh, thank you. Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. My comment is regarding the scholarships and who were the beneficiaries, the breakdown of those scholarships by zip code. If we're talking about vulnerable communities, we also need to talk about how did those communities become vulnerable in the first place? And then once we talk about how come they are vulnerable in the first place, then we talk about the institutionalization of a policy that reflects that. You see, using ARP funds to finance this program is not okay, because those are one-time funds. And believe me, that vulnerable community, their elders and people in their community, they paid that price. They paid that price with their lives. They paid that price with their health. And so we're getting a little too ahead of ourselves, congratulating ourselves by distributing an allocation in the furtherance of some type of kind of nebulous, vague, ambiguous justice when we have not even centered nor have articulated properly within the context of PRNS who should be and how we institutionalize these budget allocations to ensure that those scholarships keep flowing. They keep flowing. And we expand on the beneficiaries and what types of scholarships are available to these children. I think these are just top.
Liz Holtz?
Hi. Thank you, council members. This is Liz Holtz. I am a TNR trapper here on the east side in San Jose. Very popular sport these days. One of the questions I have for the Parks Department is whether or not the Parks Department, who Mr. Sorelli at one point, when he was with the shelter, was the one who instituted TNR programs in San Jose, want to know what is the Park Department going to do about TNRing the cats in the parks? There are large colonies in the parks. The Parks Department doesn't deal with it. We need to put together some sort of program where the shelter staff at SJAC and the medical staff there is working with the Parks Department and with local trappers who have the expertise to do the trapping to get cats that are living in the parks spayed and neutered and vaccinated so as to control the colonies, which are growing out of control in the parks. And one of the things that needs to be done and that I would love to see would be somebody from the Parks Department to come and participate in the Animal Center stakeholder meetings that Angel Rios has been holding. I think we not only need somebody from the shelter, but somebody from the parks, because the parks represent a large number of the free roaming community cats in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Back to the committee.
Thank you. Councilmember Torres.
Great. Thank you to our PRNS team for that awesome presentation, but also thank you to our PRNS team for always providing very important programming and services to our most underserved. You know, I hold this department near and dear to my heart, as I started off as a rec leader back in the, the year 2000. A long time ago. And so, here I am now, which is, so weird. But for me, it was my best job ever, right? Educating and working with our youth. And so, this department means a lot, not only to myself, but means a lot for our most underserved neighborhoods in the city of San Jose. So I just have a couple questions. How do residents qualify for a scholarship?
Thank you, council member. It's actually pretty easy. You just have to show any form of assistance that you're on. That could be a Cal Fresh card,
Okay.
Social Security check, whatever. It's just show us you're on public assistance, you get the scholarship.
Great. And correct me if I'm wrong, we provided over $2 million of scholarships.
Yep, quite a bit. And now a lot of that was American Rescue Plan funding. So what you'll see in this upcoming budget is our struggle with, as that money goes away, how do we sustain or build towards the future to keep or at least get some of what we were spending out of federal dollars.
Okay, that's good to know because it's budget season. And the other is and I know we didn't deep dive too much into it, but I think it's a very valid question. In terms of the specific programming offered in community centers, how is that selected for, let's say, Roosevelt or Camden or Almaden? How do you select the programming?
Are you saying, yeah, so for each center, what program is provided?
Yeah.
How is that done? Hal, are you still, can you answer that real quick? I'm going to ask Hal Spangenberg, who's the division manager for our recreation division, to step up and answer that real quick.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Hal Spangenberg. I'm the division manager for our recreation division within PRNS. Councilmember Torres, I started as a rec leader in 2001.
Yeah, nice.
So maybe we crossed paths somewhere.
We probably did, but didn't we ride on the elevator this morning?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. But thank you for the question. So each of our community centers, what we have frontline staff that are working at the community centers called recreation program specialists. They work together with their supervisor and the team at the community center, and also our vendors and our staff to develop programming. They typically focus on programming on a seasonal basis. So we break the season up into 4 seasons, and each season they can adjust programming levels. A lot of the programs at community centers are also based on amenities. So take Almaden Community Center, they have a gymnasium, Roosevelt doesn't. There's more sports programs at Almaden than at Roosevelt. And a lot of it is tied to space as well. One of the things that we find in areas like Mayfair, Roosevelt, and Seven Trees is the high need for full day programming. So we really like to focus on our full day camp operation there and max out the facility space to serve those working families in those areas, and really try to stray away from 1-hour classes or 3-hour camps and really focus on full day or 6-hour camps at those locations.
Great, thank you. And then my last question is, I see that there are 15 park rangers for over 200 parks. I think that's a question for John. 15 park rangers for 200 parks for 60 miles of trails. Is that enough?
Well, the short answer is no. it's 15 FTE, so there's actually more rangers than that. It's around 23 or 4,
Okay.
if I remember right. I'm going to ask Avi Otam, our Parks Deputy Director, under which the rangers are, to comment on this. Thanks, Avi.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Councilmember, for the question. John's right. The real number of park rangers is a little bit higher. We're budgeted for about 20 sworn peace officer park rangers, but we also have at any given time between a dozen to 2 dozen part-time park rangers. To the root of your question, we attempt to serve the community with the resources we have. So with this level of staffing, if we get to a point of being fully staffed, we'd really look to have a great presence at our major regional parks. And as we can, get out to neighborhood parks and provide interpretive programs and resources and be a presence. But to have a presence in all 210 parks with any regularity, we would need to be a much larger program, maybe 2 or 3 times as big.
Great. Yeah. The reason why I think that's important that we are in regional parks, but as you know, some of us unfortunately have parks where we have large unhoused communities living in them or behind them or on the side of them. And so I know that it's a challenge not only for our park rangers, but our whole city and our neighborhood. So, just as this budget season, we're all trying to think of ideas on how to improve our city of San Jose, thinking about hopefully or maybe hiring more park rangers, via a budget document or just including it for budget season. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Torres. Just one comment. Usually staffing doesn't happen via budget documents because staffing is an ongoing expense and budget documents are usually for one-time funds. So we got some new council members, so I thought I'd just bring that up.
Good to know.
Vice Chair Ortiz.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman. Thank you so much to our staff for this very in-depth report, as well as the services and resources you provide to residents throughout the city, especially our most vulnerable populations. I definitely have some questions in regards to this report, and in particular as it relates to equity and cost recovery pieces. Could you share a little bit in regards to how these scholarships and changes to cost recovery fit into the overall equity goals of the city?
Well, the cost recovery is problematic, actually, which is why you see us increasing the scholarship amounts over time. So the scholarships are the thing that's meant to balance that sheet. And so, as I mentioned, the qualification is that you're on some form of public assistance. So we know we're targeting the right families and the right kids and youth in those situations. The issue is that even at $2.5 million or $3 million, it's, the majority of the program is still fee-based at that point, right? We've done the calculation. In fact, I believe we issued an MBA on this last year in the budget process, that if we wanted to make every program we have, all the after-school programs, the summer programs, the preschool programs, the leisure programs, all those things, no cost, it's about $20 million. So that's a huge amount of money. That's a big mountain for us to climb. And so that's, I was alluding to earlier, how you'll see in the budget process where we're trying to take bite-sized bits to move forward each year and grab a little more and a little more. Our vision is that any person of need that needs to access our program would do so at no cost or almost no cost. But again, that road is long and expensive, so we keep chipping away. So the fee is somewhat of a barrier. The scholarship is the answer to that, and that's how those two things work with equity.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that insight. Back in 2022, there was an audit that came back on the Children's Bill of Rights, and it showed that Mayfair had only 25% as many services as other community centers throughout the city. This was measured in 2021, and I believe that the council was told that this was due to the scholarships not yet being available and the cost recovery change not having gone into effect yet. When these programs were authorized for the 2021 year, with with those scholarships and the budget cost recovery model changes made, are we currently deploying these programs more equitably? And will the audit show that?
Yeah, so the audit's interesting. You know, Hal was speaking a little earlier. It's hard to compare community center to community center because they're all different. They all have different amenities. So the programming is going to be different. Even the participants will demand different programs in different areas of the city. It's just part of the process as we try to match that. But Mayfair in particular did fall behind in its programming. And Hal, if you can come up and speak to this real quick. But we have made some changes there. So the program is improving. I will tell you that at Mayfair, for example, when we look at summer camp, we release reservations for summer camp to all the families in our database that in the past we've given scholarships to, so they've already proven to us a need. So we'll give them an early registration period, and if all those families fill it up and they're all going to get it free off the scholarship, so be it. That will be the summer camp that year. If they only fill it 75% of the way, then we'll go to the fee payers for the other 25% and see if we can get that. But when we look at the usage rate at a Mayfair of scholarships for programming, it's usually well over 90%, meaning most of the people using those services need those scholarships. So we recognize that, and the counterbalance to that is when we look at Almaden, we don't give out nearly as many scholarships because there isn't nearly as much need. Right, so much more of the scholarships going to a Mayfair. But if you can talk specifically about the programming, Hal, thanks.
Just to piggyback on what John was saying, so we did start priority registration window for all of our seasons. This year it was a 10-day window for scholarship eligible families to register for our summer camps and our summer programs. And we saw a huge interest in enrollment during that 10-day period. And Mayfair camps are already at capacity, and they're filled with 100% scholarship participants, which is a huge difference than in years past. So that's definitely part of our equity efforts. Going out into communities, partnering with our Project Hope teams to get out and offer mobile registration events and get the word out to those communities most in need that we have those scholarships available to use and to register before it opens to the general public. You know, when we allocate scholarship money, we look at those community centers that are most in need, and we will allocate more money to sites like Mayfair, Roosevelt, and Seven Trees. Just for example, our Camp San Jose program, which is our signature full-day camp, you know, there'll be double the amount of scholarship offered at a Mayfair and a Roosevelt and a Seven Trees and a Baskin than there would be at Almaden, you know. So that's kind of how we look at scholarships from an equity basis. As far as programming, our Deputy Director, Maria De Leon, she has been working very closely with our superintendent and our supervisor at Mayfair Community Center to increase programming. We're aware that when we look at Mayfair holistically, that there was a lack of programming, not just for youth, but for seniors as well. So she is working really hard with that community, with community leaders to hold cafecito events, getting a needs assessment from the community, and our supervisors have been instituting more programs as the seasons go from spring to summer. Now we're coming up in winter and the next spring, so you will see more activity and more programs offered throughout Mayfair Community Center. And we really want to do that across the board. We really empower our staff to look at programs at the community center from season to season and speak with our community and our customers to see what we can add, what we can change around to get more participation, enrollment, and equity throughout the city.
Thank you. And just a clarification in regards to that. I know that we were talking about each community center's different. They have different level of capacity based on the need of their communities. That being said, I'm very aware that, and I'm sure staff is very aware that Mayfair is a community that needs resources, yet we're only seeing 25% in regards to other community centers. We're at the bottom of the barrel for one of the communities most need. And I'm not, trying to degrade staff. I'm just trying to raise these issues to the forefront and on the record. So, 100% of Mayfair, right, when it's only getting 25% of the capacity, 100% of Mayfair could still mean only 50% of what another community center is getting, right? So 100% doesn't mean, oh, great, we're fully, everyone based on need is getting what they're needed, right? When it's only really a portion of it. So I'm just I'm really interested in exploring ways in which we could build the capacity of the community center, because this to me seems like a systemic issue where our families in the East Side are starting behind where other communities are, and I'm hoping that we could be solution oriented when we talk about that. Does that make sense?
It definitely does. Yeah, we're happy to continue that conversation and look for ways to increase capacity. Our current, I keep going back to Camp San Jose because that's just really one of our signature programs across the board. And you're right, Almaden Community Center with the space that they have 80 or 90 kids enrolled per week. And Mayfair might have 65, but we could be creative and look at ways to maybe use other space in the community to offer a camp at a park or another nearby CBO that we can partner with to offer to get space and more capacity out there. But yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I appreciate that. I was happy to see that within the memo, the department is going to be working with the budget office and the city manager's office to look at specific funding due to ARPA going to be exhausted fairly soon. Has there been any update in regards to current action being taken place towards resources needed to extend the same level of programming throughout 2023 to 2024?
Well, that's the budget process we're engaged in now. So the sausage making is happening as we speak.
And Councilmember, what I would add to that is that council also approved 10.5 million in ARPA funds, and between now and the time that we achieve full standardization, meaning whatever you have at Almaden is what you'll have at Mayfair, which is the commitment that the department has made. We've really filled that gap with the deployment of ARPA funds, and so 90% of the funds that we used, for example, over the course of this past summer into the fall, targeted District 5, District 7, parts of and a lot of hotspot high-need neighborhoods throughout the city, and so that bridge funding really went a long way. And in addition to that, we also made available to families free access and vouchers to places like the Lake Cunningham Sports Park, Happy Hollow Park and Zoo, things that could be costly and can add up, right? Especially if you're hard pressed for money. So combination of all those things serves as our bridge strategy. Meanwhile, we achieve the equity goals that we're trying to achieve.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Candelas.
Thank you. I want to start off by thanking PRNS staff. I too, like Councilmember Torres, am a former PRNS staff member, so I appreciate the work that your department does, with regards to building healthy communities. I think that's super critical, and it's a core service. I know the residents of my district really enjoyed activities from Viva Calle to Viva Parks, and especially with the Beautify SJ program falling within your wheelhouse. There's a critical importance that your department plays, not just in recreation and making sure our families have recreation available to them, but making sure that our streets are clean. I just wanted to say that my office is at the ready to partner on Viva Calle, on Viva Parks, and on Beautify SJ. And so that being said, I think it's important we provide these programs and services to our residents, and especially folks in District 8 like Meadow Fair, Welch Park, even other. Just wanted to express my appreciation for that. And with that, I'll move acceptance of the report.
Second.
Thank you. Oh, okay. All right. I have a couple of comments. I don't see any more hands up. First of all, I want to thank you for the report, and I especially want to thank all of the Parks and Recreation team for their work on the evacuation of the gas leak in October, or I think it was August of 2021. That was a really scary, event for the area around the Bascom Community Center, and I was glad it didn't include Bascom Community Center because that became a focal point for the evacuation, and the team worked into the evening to ensure that everyone had a safe place to stay and that pets were taken care of as well, and I really appreciate all of the work that went into that, and I know it was a ton, and it was a really short turnaround time. I did want to ask the question that one of the public commenters asked about TNR in parks. Is that a program that, I know the TNR program exists, but is the program in parks something that has happened in the past and needs to be restarted, or would that be something new?
No, we've never had in the Parks Department TNR program that we actively engage in. Going back to when I had oversight of animal services, what we would typically do is, so a large group of cats doesn't show up by accident. So that means somebody's feeding them in that location. And so then what we would do is work with other cat feeders and rescuers, find out who that person is that's feeding them, and then engage that person in the TNR process and how to do it properly and reduce the number of the cats. But the only time our staff really ever traps up something and say a cat's getting into the zoo or something like that, that's obviously dangerous because we have animals a cat could kill. So it would be strange situations like that where we might do something about it as a Parks and Rec team, but generally speaking, we would go at it from the other angle, which is engaging the feeder.
Okay, thank you. I knew you were the right person to answer that question, John, because you know both sides. Appreciate that. All right, since there are no more comments, we will vote. Thank you.
That passes.
Thanks. Moving on to item D2, Family Camp Status Report. Is Avi, are you kicking this one off?
Yep. I'll introduce Avio Tom, Deputy Director, Parks, and with him, Parks Manager, Troy Treaty, who will be talking about Family Camp, which is just getting started in the next few months.
Thank you, Chair Davis and council members. And John, again, Avio Tom, Deputy Director of Parks and Parks Recreation and Neighborhood Services. Again, joined by Troy Treaty, Parks Manager over our sports facilities and programs and Family Camp. We're here today to provide you an overview of last year's summer camp season and a preview for the season ahead. With that, I will turn it over to Troy to handle the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Avi. Good afternoon. I am Troy Treaty, Parks Manager for the Destination Events and Sports Unit for the Parks Division. I'm here to provide the status report for San Jose Family Camp at Yosemite. Family Camp at Yosemite is a 51.2 acre site near Yosemite National Park, situated on federal land which is leased from the United States Forest Service. It has been managed and operated by the City of San Jose since 1968. Family Camp provides up to 70 wood-framed and canvas-covered platform tents scattered among the pines and oak trees on the middle fork of the Tuolumne River. Operating from April to October, including our pre- and post-season activities and private rentals, camp offers a variety of recreational opportunities for the entire family. Campers of all ages can enjoy swimming, creating one-of-a-kind tie-dyed t-shirts, archery, hiking, of course the great meals in the dining hall, as well as two of my favorite activities, napping with the sounds of the river flowing right outside my tent, and hooking into rainbow trout while fishing a great number of fishing holes along the river. After a 2-year hiatus due to COVID, San Jose families and friends returned to camp in the 2022 season to be greeted by a number of facility improvements, including but not limited to freshly paved camp roadways, upgrades to the rec room, otherwise known as the Tuolumne Room, renovations to our little camp store where campers can find logoed keepsakes, sweet treats, cool drinks, and any incidentals they may have forgotten at home, as well as an upgraded public announcement system throughout camp to make sure guests don't miss their favorite activity. Due to nationwide industry recruitment challenges, camp operated with a less than optimal number of camp staff last year. Additionally, with the mid-season departure of our camp manager and poor air quality shutdowns, we were challenged to press on to provide the best experience possible to our guests. We are very thankful to a small but dedicated team that were able to meet this goal. In 2022, we saw a 20% increase to the percentage of our guests that were San Jose residents, which included San Jose families, teen groups, and San Jose-based worship organizations. Looking forward to the 2023 season, our marketing and outreach goals include the items on the slide here, most notably our work with the underserved communities through the Outdoor Equity Grant from the state of California. This grant will provide an all-expense-paid trip to family camp at Yosemite for 2 family trips of up to 100 guests and 2 trips for teens for each year for the next 3 years. We'll be working closely with our partners at Project Hope and the Youth Empowerment Alliance to meet people where they are and provide opportunities to camp in the Sierras. Maintaining family camp is much like caring for a small village. It is only accomplished through the collaborative work with our partners seen here. I would like to give an additional nod to the support from within our PRNS team, the capital improvement team, and our teammates within Park Maintenance and Infrastructure Unit. Without the help of all of these partners, camp would not be possible. I would also like to note we have recruited and hired a new camp supervisor. Amber Stegner comes to us with 25 plus years of experience in state parks with a focus on interpretive programs, marketing, grants, and inclusion programs. Amber has recently started with us and has hit the ground running, to say the least. Here are some important dates to be aware of. Registration began successfully this last Sunday, March 5th at 10 a.m. In the first day, we were able to book 1,059 night stays for our guests. Fish Camp, which is an annual rite of passage for all California trout anglers, and that's the opening weekend of trout season coming up here at the end of April. And of course, our regular season operations that will happen from mid-June to mid-August. And we definitely look forward to welcoming all this season to family camp. And with that, we request the committee accept our status report and are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the public first.
Paul Soto?
Yes, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. My apologies if my direct comments offends. However, the lack of data in articulation about equity being centered within the context of family camps is troublesome, because equity, racial equity, is not an aspiration. It is a budget allocation. And that budget allocation needs to translate into data sets that can be measured by me, because that's my community. So I need to be able to see very clearly my community articulated within these services and that are provided by the city. And here's the reason why. PRNS was one of the main ways and systems by which the redlining segregated policy was institutionalized. Because what it did is it segregated and gave parks and land and resources and beauty and trees and water fountains and playgrounds to children on the west side of San Jose. At the same time, it was at the expense of the children from Salsipuedes who were working, who were eligible to vote in the union at the age of 7. Their sons and daughters and their offspring, their grandchildren are still alive today, and they are an identifiable group within San Jose. So I would like to see that identifiable group, number one, quantified, identified, and then indemnified. Thank you.
Back to the committee.
Thank you. Councilmember Torres.
Great. No, thank you so much for that presentation. Speaking about budget documents, I remember when I worked in District 5, we submitted a budget document to send 100 District 5 families to family camp. I see Angel nodding his head because I know there were some issues there with buses on our part, but it happened. But I mean, it's just amazing to hear so many families who said that that was the first time ever camping. And family camp is just a beautiful place to be at, beautiful place for our families. So glad that our city continues to invest in family camp and our family camp. And just a real quick question: is there a dedicated staffer for marketing for family camp?
Dedicated per se, not that they're allocated just to that, but they are very dedicated to that project as a team and building and growing that with the new supervisor.
Okay, great. And when we talk about numbers this season, how do you plan on accomplishing those numbers, like hitting and achieving our goals?
We were very overwhelmed and impressed with our opening day registration, and we already did help to meet some of those goals with our reduced capacity. We are at a reduced capacity due to tent availability and staffing availability due to those challenges we had with recruitment last year. I definitely believe my team believes in under-promising and over-delivering. So we wanted to set targets that we knew we could achieve with that reduced capacity. And as we were able to secure additional staff and make sure tents are available, we will increase that capacity and do not anticipate between the Outdoor Equity Grant as well as some of our partners from Project Hope, and we had great feedback from that trip last year, as well as demands from our regular guests. We don't expect any difficulty achieving those goals.
No, great. So I know that you mentioned, and before our motion, I know that you mentioned Project Hope. When I was a participant at the Washington United Youth Center, it was very important, especially in the summer months, to take us out of the violence that was happening in our communities during the summer, as unfortunately we all know that youth violence peaks in the summer, and very important that we take our most underserved, most at-risk families, teens, out of the environment and into an environment like family camp. So I'm so glad that everyone is mentioning it in this presentation. So, and with that, I motion to approve item D2.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second from Councilmember Candelas, just in case you didn't hear that. All right, any other colleagues want to speak on this item? All right, let's vote.
Motion passes. Oh,
Great.
Motion passes.
Motion passes, and thank you for the report. We will move on to item D3, Neighborhoods Commission Status Report.
Thank you, Chair. Joining me, Deputy Director Andrea Forrest Shelton and Division Manager Olympia Williams to talk about our Neighborhoods Commission Status Report.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, my name is Olympia Williams, Beautify SJ Division Manager. There are 3 recommendations that we are proposing to strengthen engagement with neighborhood associations, increase access for neighborhoods, and better meet the needs of both neighborhoods and the city. First, we are recommending to sunset the Neighborhoods Commission. Second, the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee that oversees the Measure B tax revenue would transition to the Parks and Recreation Commission as a standing committee. Members of this ICOC would be comprised of Park and Recreation Commissioners and can include other commissioners from the Senior and Youth Commission. And finally, we would return to this committee in late fall or early spring of next year with a report back on the new Neighborhood Association engagement model. Our recommendation to sunset the Neighborhoods Commission, which we do not take lightly, is based on seeking a more effective way to partner with our neighborhood associations and neighborhood groups to address issues and provide excellent customer service with an inclusive approach. Over the past 3 years, there have been ongoing challenges that have impacted the Commission's ability to meet on a consistent basis. For example, we've had this ongoing lack of quorum. Oftentimes, our scope has been very large, and many commissioners have expressed to me that they're overwhelmed by the amount of work that needs to be done on this commission. Second, there are challenges just due to the commission structure. You can imagine this is a city commission, so it has more of a bureaucratic structure. What we typically find is that our neighborhoods are asking for more real-time solutions. For example, someone wouldn't typically come to a neighborhood commission meeting to get help with an ongoing blight issue in a neighborhood or other issues that are impacting the quality of life. Many neighborhood association leaders have cited the lack of interaction and problem solving as one of the challenges also with the commission's format, and the caucus process that is used to select neighborhood commissioners. This selection process is not considered inclusive by many of our community members, and it doesn't truly and accurately reflect our diverse population. Andrea?
Thank you. Andrea Flores-Shelton, Deputy Director. We are proposing a three-step process. The first step is coming before you today and to the full council on April 11th to review the recommended course of action and solicit your direction. After council direction, we would then convene a work group over several months to seek input and discuss the challenges and problems we're seeking to solve with neighborhood leaders. PRNS will be working with the City Manager's Office to align with the new customer service vision and the new community engagement framework and apply those lessons. With neighborhood leaders, we would co-design possible solutions. At the same time, we would update the ordinance to move the role of the ICOC from the Neighborhood Commission to the Parks and Rec Commission. And then finally, in the third step, we would come back with the recommendations for a neighborhood association engagement model back to NSC and to council in the winter and spring of 2024. The proposed goals of the work group are to increase access and communication with the variety of neighborhood groups across the city, to develop strategies that improve city department connections to neighborhood associations and groups, and to ensure that inclusive approaches are a part of the citywide outreach to neighborhood groups. I want to ensure the committee, as well as current neighborhood commissioners, that there may be a menu of ways that neighborhood leaders and neighborhood associations engage with the city. Today's recommendation is based on ensuring that this time next year, we end up with something that is a win-win. I recognize that ending the Neighborhood Commission as it currently stands may not seem like a win, but if the council moves forward in April, the end of the Neighborhood Commission should not impact anyone's ability to engage with the city. We're seeking a better experience for more people at the end. And with that, I'd like to also thank someone who we have in the audience, Jim Carter. He has served as the chair of the Neighborhoods Commission for the past 3 years, and his ongoing volunteerism and advocacy for all of our neighborhoods is to be recognized. Also, we'd like to thank Gary Cunningham, who is the former chair of the commission, and for his leadership on the ICOC. And with that, we're here to take questions.
Thank you. We'll go to the public first.
Okay, we have one in-person speaker. Jim, if you can make your way down.
Okay. Good afternoon, members of the Neighborhood Services and Education Committee. I'm Jim Carter. I'm the current chair pro tem of the Neighborhoods Commission. When Olympia Williams told me that the decision to sunset the Neighborhoods Commission had been made, I was very disappointed. I'm disappointed that we will not be continuing to represent our respective neighborhoods through a recognized city commission. I'm disappointed that COVID interrupted our commission so much that it has come to the decision to sunset the commission. I'm disappointed we were not able to have either the caucus process or commissioners appointed during the terms. I'm disappointed hearing there are some neighborhoods and residents that are underrepresented. I am hoping that all the prior work done by commissioners representing the districts hopefully has gone not unnoticed. The districts are represented by some very good, dedicated neighbors who only wanted to improve the quality of life for their neighborhoods and who submitted annual reports, budget recommendations, and participated in department head interview boards, reimagining public safety committees. The drone procedure policy was constructed. They advocated for fireworks control and many, many other work projects, including promoting the CERT and Neighborhood Watch programs. In addition, neighborhood commissioners attended ad hoc committee meetings, independent citizen oversight committee meetings, association meetings, and district leadership group meetings. I'm disappointed that there will be no longer a formal neighborhoods commission representing all districts with representatives selected by their neighbors. I'd like to suggest the next steps. Don't eliminate the neighborhood commission until after hearing from the neighborhood leaders. Convene those neighborhood leaders sooner rather than later, and leaders consisting of current and former commissioners and all district leadership group.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go online.
Paul Soto?
Yes, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. You have very active groups in the barrios. You got Plato Arroyo, you got Mayfair, you've got Meadow Fair, you've got Guana, you've got Willow Glen. You have all these groups. These groups within this context, I'm going to ask that there be a budget allocation to resource these neighborhood associations that facilitate a lot of the work that is the responsibility of the city, but it is these neighborhood associations that actually do the work. They're actually speaking with the residents in the neighborhoods. When you put these commissions and install them within the city, what it does is it mitigates their influence. And each one is a representation of the history, of the conditions, of the social, political, and economic tenor, the temperature of those areas. And they provide vital information back to the cities in order to inform them on policy decisions with no pay. They do this simply because they're civically engaged. They feel a duty and a responsibility to their neighborhoods and to the homes that they are eventually going to leave to their progeny. So this is why in this particular meeting, I'm going to ask for a discussion to have these neighborhood associations resourced so that they can continue to do the work that the city is literally incapable of doing and has demonstrated that by its leaning on the neighborhood associations, Guana, Plato Arroyo, and Willow Glen especially.
Lawrence?
Hi, Larry Ames, Chair of the District 6 Neighborhood Leaders Group. I also served on the Neighborhoods Commission during its first 6 years, including as chair in 2014 to 2016. We oppose staff's recommendation, point A, to sunset the Neighborhoods Commission. The Neighborhoods Commission is the community's formal connection to the city on matters not covered by other commissions, such as the Parks or Libraries Commissions. The Neighborhoods Commission collects and forwards to council the community's thoughts on the proposed city budget, and also in the past has weighed in on a variety of different topics, as Jim Carter noted, the public safety, emergency services, changes to the planning department's outreach policy 0-4, the urban tree canopy policy, fireworks, and even the policies and operating procedures for the police department's bomb disposal drone. Next up could be the animal shelter, discussion of the animal shelter. The commission does need some help. It hasn't been able to meet lately due to the lack of quorum, due to term limits, redistricting, and the COVID interference with the caucus process. We hope the council will once again reaffirm its support for the Neighborhoods Commission and will appoint interim commissioners so that the commission can restart its caucus process to reinvigorate itself. I also hope the commission can be made more functional by improving its communications and its work plan update process. Regarding recommendation B, moving ICOC to PRNS, no objection. Regarding recommendation C, neighborhood engagement process, I sadly note the passing of Ken Bodarsek and the Executive Director of United Neighborhoods of Santa Clara County. UNSCC used to host annual forums with training on how to establish neighborhood associations and how to contact your representatives. With UNSCC now fading, perhaps the cities can help with that with this NAE process. Not as a substitute for the Neighborhoods Commission, but to augment it. The NAE can help establish neighborhood associations, and the commission then can represent them to council. The council established the commission in 2008 in response to grassroots advocacy, and you did reaffirmed it in 2012 and 20.
Back to the committee.
Thank you. Councilmember Torres, do you have your hand up? Okay, sorry. That must have been from last time. Councilmember?
That was Ortiz, right?
Ortiz.
Oh,
I was just going to call you next.
Okay. Some people mix this up.
I was reading names. I wasn't looking at people.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman, and thank you, staff, for your hard work on this and your recommendation. I'm not in favor of the recommendation. I've spoken to my representative on the Neighborhoods Commission, and she mentioned that she wasn't informed of the dissolution of the committee. And I think that if we are going to be disbanding this Neighborhood Commission, there should be at least a meeting with the commission owners. And I'd love to hear, has there been discussions with current sitting commissioners?
Currently, there is no neighborhoods commissioner for District 5. There was a former neighborhoods commissioner, if you're referring to Jewel.
Jewel, yes.
She was a former neighborhoods commissioner. She's not a current neighborhoods commissioner. She hasn't been a commissioner since June of 2022.
Of 2020, okay. All right. When's the last time the commission met?
The last time the commission met was in June of 2022.
Of June of 2022. Oh, okay, and they haven't had a quorum since then. All right. Has there been other avenues explored before disbanding this commission?
There have been a variety of it's a great question, Councilmember. There have been a variety of forums that I've explored. I have probably gone to about 60 neighborhood association meetings over the last 12 months, speaking directly to neighborhood association leaders. Most have told me they don't find the commission, not the commissioners, the structure of the commission to be able to respond to real-time issues that come up. So if you're a neighborhood association and you're coming in for help because let's say there's an issue in the neighborhood and it's stuck in the city system, the commission doesn't address that. The commission has where it does reports, here's staff reports, but it's not taking real-time action or problem solving. So what I have found is that most of our neighborhood associations are coming in for support such as, we need help to strengthen the neighborhood association. We need help on the BSJ grant application. We want to organize a community cleanup or a dumpster day. We need 500 flyers so we can get information out to the neighborhood, and that's not the kind of work of the current structure of the Neighborhoods Commission.
Well, really, any commission, right, can't technically take action. It's mostly recommendations that they would make to the city council. Am I right?
Do any commissions besides planning commission? I mean, commissions are advisory, right?
Exactly. So it'd be the same for any commission. So we should just disband any commission because they can't take action?
So if I can jump in, Councilmember Ortiz, thank you. So some of the challenges we discussed, and if you look in the memo, we kind of outline what was in the 2013 ordinance and what the scope is. It's everything from parking and transportation to traffic safety issues. The scope of the commission is very, very large. And so when we did have a quorum and we were meeting online, I'd say 21, 22, the work plan had a variety of issues that when we did get new commissioners in, I noticed a lot of gung-ho, like we are ready to do this. This was a particular commissioner from D7. And within months, sort of the work plan and the scope and the variety of issues that neighborhood commissioners wanted to engage in, it became overwhelming. We would try to scope it down or direct them to, again, traffic safety, maybe Vision Zero Task Force or other things. So when your question was, have there been other ideas for the neighborhood commission other than disbanding it? Its current scope is so large. Its structure as it relates to 20 members, even when without, well, we couldn't hold a caucus because we didn't have quorum, right? So there's all these pieces that add up to its current structure, its uniqueness, right? Most of our other commissions are smaller. So even when we do have a couple vacancies, we can move forward and have meetings. We have just found there's kind of compounding issues, and we would like to reset, redesign, and take what we've learned from the equity work that we've done to try to really understand what are the other avenues for engaging neighborhood associations to meet kind of both real-time but policy issues as well. I mean, I think every commission is kind of grappling with policy issues. And then, and I've said this to other folks, we may come back and say, hey, one of the ways we do this is through a commission, right? I mean, we may come back and in the co-design process with neighborhood leaders and say a commission is one of those things. But I think what we'd like to do is develop some sort of menu, because right now the neighborhood commission feels like a one-size-fits-all, and we have such a variety of neighborhood associations that are in different places of understanding city services, how to tap into city services, and then we're finding we have a lot of folks that are kind of on the margins that we're trying to figure out how do they connect with the neighborhood commission, and maybe it's not through a commission process. So we're trying not to jump to solution. We're trying to figure out how is there a process where we can work together, co-design, and then come back with solutions that work for a lot of folks.
I mean, I'd love to. I love that idea of co-designing, huddling, working together. But I do feel like, as you mentioned, rushing. I feel like we're rushing to erase this commission. I think that there can be modifications to the current format of the commission, whether it's the amount of individuals on the board, but I don't think neighborhood associations as a whole are a substitute for the neighborhood commission. Not everybody on the neighborhood commission were representatives from neighborhood associations. Some were just individual citizens, and those voices still matter. So I personally, as it relates to the disbandment of the commission, I'm opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, and first of all, how many commissioners are currently on the commission? I know we don't have enough for quorum, but how many do we have?
4.
4 of 20.
Correct.
Okay. So we couldn't, even if we didn't sunset the commission today, there would be no meetings. Okay. And the size of the commission is currently in an ordinance, right? That's something that would have to take
correct
city attorney time and come back to council for us to change if we wanted to do that. And the same for the caucus process. Is that also correct?
Correct.
To change it to an appointment process would require action by the full council. Okay, just want to make sure I'm aware. And then we talked about the scope of the commission. In the meantime, will the work of the Neighborhoods Commission be distributed to the other existing commissions, or how will that work be distributed to other community members to give us advice?
Yes, those that have an applicable commission, we would absolutely make sure that those issues, and we do that on a regular basis, right? Make sure that people are connected, whether they're commissioners or not, are connected to those. There are, certain quality of life issues that don't have a standing commission at this time, but we continue, like blight, right? That they have direct access to staff to work through.
Okay, and then in terms of the community process, I can't remember what you're calling it, the Neighborhood Association Engagement Model Work Group, will the current commissioners and any past commissioners who came off the commission from June 2022 when you actually had quorum, will they be engaged, and will they be part of that work group?
Absolutely. We want people with experience who know what worked well, what were the challenges, and we absolutely want to hear from all of them.
And what role will the council member offices have in that process?
We would absolutely help us find those folks, but in addition, I think you all play a critical role and you have relationships with neighborhood associations, so I think your involvement in a work group, whatever Brown Act issues we have, we would absolutely support that.
Okay, so one of the things that that I've always had, I wouldn't say trouble with, but just confusion about, is that the neighborhoods commissioners seem to have the same scope as council members, but they were chosen through a caucus process, and we were elected through a ballot. And so I'm not, I haven't ever really understood where their work and our work didn't overlap. And so that's one of the things that I think is important to look at when you're looking at the neighborhood association engagement model. What is the role of the council members' offices in engaging the neighborhood associations? Jim goes to neighborhood association meetings, and my staff and I go to neighborhood association meetings. Why are we duplicating that work? And how could the council offices, in the next iteration of whatever neighborhood association engagement looks like from the staff side, how could the council member offices be involved in that to the extent that we are one team, as we talk about all the time, between staff and council offices? It just seems duplicative and unnecessary to have this separate structure. So those have been my concerns, and kind of in line with that, I see that you have coming back to us in the spring of 2024, but you had the annual neighborhoods conference where you would present the strategy to better serve and engage with neighborhood associations. You would be presenting that in the fall of 2023.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a part of the engagement process. I don't think that that's like the final recommendation. I think when we think about the engagement model, we've talked about everything from surveying folks, in person or through social media, to hearing back from folks at the conference. So the final recommendation wouldn't come at the conference. We think the conference is another part of sort of fleshing this out and getting sort of two-way dialogue going.
Understood, and I would ask that you would keep this committee in the loop and come back to us after that fall of 2023 with an interim report, rather than presenting us a nice, clean, tied up with a bow recommendation, that we could have input into that as well. Again, because I think it's really important for us to be integrated between the council offices and the staff on this neighborhood association engagement. I see you nodding your head, Angel, and you've got your finger on the button.
Yeah, no, actually, I was just going to agree with that, because I think that is the right approach. Because, I think, candidly, I think we do have a structure and a scope issue here, right? And I think, if we do the same and expect different results, I don't think that's also, the course that we're on here, right? Now, I was also looking at, for example, Councilmember Doan's blue memo here, and I know Jim personally and really respect his leadership, and I know folks like Larry Ames and others. I think the goal here is not so much to erase a voice, but to empower more voices, right? And we would start with the Jim Carters, the Larry Ames, the several others that have been part of kind of building this commission idea, right? But then really take ourselves through a process with community to look at how can we empower more voices, how can we better define our scope, how can we create a structure that enables success and ultimately provides a conduit between from the community to council in an advisory way, where we can synthesize meaningful recommendations and make them actionable, right? That's really what we're trying to achieve. By no means is this meant to disrespect any leaders or even present structure. I think it's just kind of calling out the fact that the structure that we have is kind of it sets people up for failure, right? The caucus model, because if we're going to be very candid, This commission structure was built right when S&I went away, right? So we still had that S&I infrastructure. That no longer exists at the city. We're feeling the impacts of that, right? So I guess one way of keeping this structure is bring back the S&I structure that'll kind of support that, right? I don't think that's feasible or doable at this time. So I just kind of want to reiterate that staff's recommendation is really centered around empowering more people, creating a better structure, defining a better scope, and providing a better pathway between community and the mayor and council.
Thank you. So we do have Councilmember Dwan's memo, and I know we have more speakers who, on my colleagues have more that they want to say, but I would like to suggest, and in fact, I'll craft the motion instead of recommendation 1 from Councilmember Dwan. I would like to say, let's accept the staff recommendation and then direct staff to consider item 2 of Councilmember Dwan's as one of the options to come back to us with, as well as coming back to this body in the fall with a status update after the annual neighborhoods conference. So that's my motion.
Just a clarification on that, Chair. So it would be the status update instead of spring of 2024 would be fall of 2023?
That's correct.
Okay.
And we can do the with the final recommendations in spring of 2024, but basically giving us another
Check-in
bite at
point.
the apple. Yep.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Our next speaker is Councilmember Dwan.
Thank you, Chair. Well, it's a big problem that I think we can always put our minds together and find a better solution. The Neighborhood Commission is the only commission which has the ability to address quality of life issues in the city from a neighborhood perspective, anywhere from public safety, transportation, code enforcement. And the budget looked very different to your average resident that they do to a city staff member or official. I know that your staff have tried to shut down the commission in 2012, 2018, and as of now as well. And which each time you have met with strong opposition from San Jose neighborhoods. Now, when Mr. Rios talking about doing the exact same thing and expected this different result, I don't believe in doing the same thing. I think we need to revamp the system so that way we get better result. It doesn't mean that we throw everything away that we've already accumulated, and some are successful and some are not. And I think it's important that all of us give that consideration to our community. And I know it's difficult, but failure is not an option for our constituent out there. I know that the scope of the commission is broad because sometimes it needs to be. The quality of life issues almost always require multiple departments and broad reach. We should support the original goal of our neighborhood commission. It doesn't mean that we stay the same. Yes, we can modify, enhance upon it. So I recommend the following that Chairwoman have already stated. And I do agree that with the item number 2 on my memo, that staff come back with the rest of the recommendation from A through G. If that is the case, then I would be at least entertaining the thoughts and be happy with. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other colleagues like to speak? Councilmember Torres?
Yes, no, one thank you to my colleagues for your comments and your suggestions and your concerns. As a former neighborhood association president, I know that representation is very, very important. But for me, I'm very, very concerned that we only have 4 neighborhood commissioners in a body of 20. And that what concerns me the most is that 2 folks are representing a city, a council district of 100,000 with a whole slew of diverse neighborhood associations. So even as a neighborhood leader, I was very concerned about the neighborhood commission back then. And I know that it did create a lot of good work. And I know that we've had amazing representation and amazing leaders pushing for the fireworks ordinance, pushing for the illegal dumping response team, pushing for the sideshows. Is that sideshows? I was gonna say donuts, but I guess they, we're on the commission, so we have to say, sideshows. And so pushing for all that stuff. But for me, I know that when I was organizing Guana with a whole slew of other amazing folks, we were concerned that more affluent neighborhoods got representation on this neighborhood commission, because while we still had to go door to door to get folks to this caucus, folks in other affluent areas were able to just email 100 of their friends from District 3 to go out and vote for folks, right? And so, before we do vote, can I get who were the last District 3 commissioners for this body? Because I know that District 3 folks it's vacant right now. And if you don't, you could always send it off offline.
I will email it to you.
Yeah, that's great. But those are my 2 cents, and we can vote now.
Well, now we have more hands up. Councilmember Candelas.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, staff, for the presentation. I know this is to sunset any commissioner or to make that recommendation is I understand the difficulty that comes with that. But I think looking at it from an iterative process to how to improve community engagement and neighborhood engagement, I think this has a lot of opportunity to create, something innovative and something that'll be better for our city. And I think, this neighborhood association engagement model, has the potential to really get to what the Neighborhoods Commission was intended to do. And that's truly provide and express the concerns of the neighborhood and associations to our city. And so that's why I'm happy that Councilmember Dwan and Councilmember Davis iterated something that I think could get us to a better place with regards to our Neighborhoods Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dewan.
When speaking with current and past commissioner of the Neighborhood Commission, they are engaged. They are in agreement with that quorum that could not be met since COVID started because staff interfered and halted the process. Am I correct? First, staff prohibit the commission from holding their caucus election in 2019 prior to COVID restriction, and again in 2021 during the COVID restriction. Second, there is no process in place to appoint commissioner to the Neighborhood Commission when the caucus process could not take place. Because of this, every commissioner in the Neighborhood Commission de facto termed out. And there are, pardon me here, there are no process in place to appoint commissioner to the Neighborhood Commission when the caucus process could not take place. Because of this, every commissioner in the neighborhood de facto term out, and there are only 4 members currently on the roster because the term were extended. The body cannot make quorum when the city does not fill its position, and I have a couple of questions for you. Currently, the city clerk may appoint a commissioner with the approval of council if there is a vacancy. Is that correct? Yes. And then why hasn't that happened?
Councilmember, thanks for the question. We actually did do that with this very commission during the pandemic so that we could create a quorum and have meetings, which we accomplished. So it's not true that we weren't able to do that or didn't make it happen. What we weren't able to do was the caucus. We couldn't bring a bunch of people together like that in a space like that, and we couldn't quite figure out how to pull it off electronically. Despite what you may be hearing from whoever you're hearing it, we've made those attempts, but it's a very heavy lift. And to Angel's earlier point, it was designed at a time when there was a much greater support system around it. And I think what we hear from commissioners and others maybe who have served in the past who are worried about what we're recommending right here is that somehow the purpose of this will go away. But again, to Angel's point, that's not at all what we're attempting to do. We're trying to find a better way. Right now, it is not working. It just isn't. And there's a variety of reasons. We've outlined some of them. You can read it in detail in our memo. But we're looking for a better path forward to have the voice of the neighborhoods heard, which is the whole purpose that everybody wants, that everybody agrees to. So that's what we're asking for the space to do, is have some time to create that process, come back to you in the fall if it passes that way. Have this conversation again, everybody gets more input, we start to tighten it up, we go to full council with a broader discussion. That sounds like a good way to me to go about it. Honestly, if the question really is, if the consternation is all around the fact that we're saying, eliminate the neighborhood commission, then we'd be okay if we just say suspend it. Suspend it until such time as we come back with this process where we've talked to everybody else and had the input on, hey, do you want to keep it the way it is or not? Do you want to change it? Do you want to do something entirely different? What's going to work for you as our community, as our neighborhood associations, that's going to best serve your needs in our community? So maybe suspending helps people take a step back and engage in the process and not be as worried that we're trying to eliminate this from the community, because we're not.
Well, my thought is, why don't you come up with the plan before we sunset the old plan, right? You're asking me to sunset something that you have no clear plan to replace it with.
That's correct. We don't know that there'll be another commission. Maybe there won't. Maybe the communities will say, we don't need a commission. We need this, something else. So we don't know. So we weren't trying to presume, and we weren't trying to propose, because we wanted that to develop organically with the neighborhood associations, not us saying, this is what it's going to be instead of that. So that was the idea, is that it's a fully engaged process, not a, hey, here's our great idea about how we should change it.
All right. Thank you.
All right, I'm happy to amend my motion to say suspend instead of eliminate. Is that okay with the seconder?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll second it.
We already have a seconder. Councilmember Torres.
Yes, sorry. So just to clarify, I have 2 vacancies on the Neighborhoods Commission. I can appoint folks temporarily.
Sorry. I probably should have clarified. In the context of the pandemic, we were able to use the clerk's office to just put out applications and appoint people so we could create a quorum. Site responsibility over Measure B. Right. So we needed to get that conversation happening with the budget office ahead of the budget. So there was a lot of push and urgency around that. But as it stands, an individual council member can't appoint a member to this commission. It has to occur normally through a caucus. We just were in an emergency situation. The rules can be bent a little.
Okay, great. And my last thing is, I do hope, and I know that you did talk a little bit about it, my hope is for you all to work with these amazing neighborhood association groups that have popped up. Like I know in District 3, we have the District 3 CLC, Community Leadership Committee Club, one of those. District 5 United, there's a, District 8 Community Roundtable, you get it, right? And so, I just hope that you all are doing that. I think you are, but utilize the neighborhood associations that are already meeting, because it depends on how some of us do this, right? I know some of us are hands-on and some of us are hands-off on these, District 5 United or District 3 CLC. So just utilize those folks.
All right, thank you. And just one last thing, if you want to check with the council offices on the most up-to-date neighborhood association lists, I'm still randomly on the Beautify SJ grant list as a board member for my neighborhood association, which I haven't been for almost 10 years now. So if you want an updated list, you can let my office know. We're ready for the vote, I think.
Could I just clarify, you had made an amendment to suspend instead of sunset, and was that for the staff memo? So instead of accepting it in full, you're going to amend the first one?
Correct. Yes, thank you. And then the motion also includes
Item two, yeah.
two other items. So Councilmember Dewan's item number 2 as an option for staff to explore. And then the third item is to come back to this committee in the fall of 2023 after they have their neighborhoods conference with an update.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. And then the request to you, which was not in the motion, was to keep our council member offices engaged in the entire process. So hopefully that the recommendations can be integrated with the council offices. Thank you.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. We will move on to open forum.
There are no hands up.
All right, then we are adjourned. Thank you.